Network.
The death toll to rise beyond 157 as the cyclone continues in southern Africa. Manhunt after one killed and many injured on Utrecht tram in Netherlands. And Boeing safety system under scrutiny after the initial black box analysis. Hello and welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall. In Nairobi, we'll bring you the details on those stories in just a moment. But first, Rama Nyang with the day's business headlines. Rama.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in the course of the hour. Management of South Africa's passenger rail service is in trouble after the president gets stuck on one of their commuter service trains. And Somalia is looking for help to address a domestic currency crisis. We'll have the details on those stories and lots more coming your way in the course of the hour. But let's start with the latest in current affairs with Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. And we begin in Mozambique, where the Red Cross has said a cyclone that slammed into Mozambique last week has damaged destroyed 90% of the city of Beira, as the death toll in the country and neighboring Zimbabwe rises to 157. The global body said a large dam burst on Sunday and cut off the last road to the city of some 530,000 people. Idai tore into the center of the country on Thursday before continuing on to Zimbabwe, bringing flash floods and ferocious winds, washing away roads and houses. A toll compiled on Monday from official sources puts the death toll in Mozambique at 68, including 55 in Beira alone and 89 in Zimbabwe. The IFRC has warned that the death toll could rise once the full scale of the devastation is known, with further heavy rains forecast. Let's get more on this devastating situation. CGTN's Angelo Coppola is joining me now from Johannesburg. Angelo, South Africa's president has deployed soldiers to assist in recovery operations in neighboring Mozambique. What are the details? How is the recovery session?
Well, look, it was a small group of soldiers that was sent into Mozambique. They were deployed over the weekend. They're known as front elements. They're looking at how Mozambique is dealing and with the crisis situation there. They're assessing the situation, we're understanding, because they want to assist on the ground in that humanitarian recovery mission that is happening at the moment. They have been assessing rescue operations to see how they can be deployed differently and also to see what kind of logistic support that they can provide. It is a small group to start with, and it's likely to be supplemented as the scale of the disaster becomes more apparent. We do understand that the South African Defence Minister is meeting her Mozambican counterpart in Pretoria on Tuesday, and that's to discuss mutual cooperation, and it's most likely that they'll also discuss the situation in Mozambique and how the SANDF, that's the National Defence Force in South Africa, can help their Mozambican counterparts. Beatrice.
Angelo, from where you are, how severe is the situation in Mozambique, and why did the South African government see the need to send assistance?
Well, look, we understand that the situation is dire. How dire, we're unable to report on exactly. We are going to be with those aid agencies in the next 2 days, so we'll be able to get a better picture and understanding what's been happening. The International Red Cross, as you reported, are claiming that Beira is devastated and probably 90% destroyed. That flood or that dam wall that broke is the last road into Beira, so people have been flying into the area to try and provide assistance. That's what happened with the Red Cross group. They actually had to be flown over the river, over the water, to land in the city to start their relief efforts there. There's also no more information about the situation outside of the city, because that's still cut off because of all that water. The South Africans, of course, were asked to lend a hand by the Mozambican president. That's the protocol that is involved. The president has to ask for assistance, and South Africa's Ramaphosa, without thinking twice, offered the SANDF's services to go in and help them out. It's not the first time they've been there. They've been there for 3 previous floods, and most recently when Hurricane Dineo touched down at Tofo Beach some 2 years ago. The loss of life this time around is much higher and could be even worse with those flood waters receding. We are hearing reports from the Mozambican president's office, who flew over the area earlier today, that the death toll is likely to be much higher than the number that we're seeing at the moment, which is around 84 just for that area. for now, the South African International Relations Department, of course, are calling on its citizens to make donations of food and clothing to help the Mozambicans in need. And of course, our thoughts are with those people who have lost loved ones and who are suffering through the losses right now. Beatrice.
Angela Coppola joining us there from Johannesburg with that update. Let's now rope in Daniel Arap Moy. He's in Malawi for us. He's in Blantyre. Daniel, we understand that people in Malawi are now facing a second threat of flash floods after this cyclone. What more do we know about that? What can you tell us?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, the people in Malawi are expecting more rain here. Actually, we've just been trying to set up our equipment and it started raining again. But where we are in Chikwewa, there are about 800 people around a playing field. And there is only one tent that is accommodating all the people that are here. And the picture is actually looking very bad here. The children are outside in the cold. The mothers are outside in the cold. There's actually no shelter whatsoever that can accommodate all these people that are gathered here today. And the government is saying they're trying to organize for tents, and but the tents are not forthcoming. The people are simply out in the open. We are right here at the camp itself, and we are watching them, brave through the cold. It's just finished raining here, and they're simply outside in the open.
Daniel, you have just come back from the affected areas. Give us a clearer understanding of the devastation that you saw there. What did you see, and how exactly is the government and local government authorities, for that matter, dealing with that situation?
Well, the devastation is actually immense here. People here lost virtually almost everything, especially those that are here at the camp. They lost everything. They lost their crops. They lost their houses, they lost their animals, so they barely have nothing to present. They are simply here as themselves, and they've been waiting for relief agencies to start distributing food items, but they are not forthcoming as well. So they are simply waiting for a good Samaritan to pass by and hand over a few items to them. We don't know whether this is going to come next week, but we've been speaking to one of the government officials here, a commissioner of this district, and she was telling us that the government is trying to mobilize resources. So we hope by the end of this week, people here can get something to either feed on or some tents where they can have shelter.
Daniel Arap Moy joining us there from Blantyre in Malawi with that update. We are going to stay in Malawi for the moment, where hundreds of people remain stranded in southern Malawi after heavy rainfall hit the region. Relief agencies on the ground are currently trying to transport in emergency humanitarian supplies, including medicine. Our reporter Daniel Arap Moy is in southern Malawi. He brings us once more this report.
Hundreds of thousands of people are currently stranded in southern Malawi following heavy rains and floods that have devastated the region. Floods have left overwhelming number of people in need of humanitarian assistance. So far, the floods have affected over 900,000 people in 14 districts, displacing over 16,000 households, mainly in the southern region. Key concerns among the flood victims are emergency shelter, clean water and medical supplies.
So far, the government has provided food. It is also providing shelter, and in collaboration with some partners, also trying to provide some water, tents, and even medication to the people that have been displaced.
The government of Malawi is trying to mobilize resources to help the affected families, but humanitarian assistance remain in short supply. The extent and severity of the current flooding in southern Malawi is overwhelming relief organizations, leaving many struggling to respond in areas that are hard to reach. Government officials on the ground say the situation is becoming unbearable, given the unprecedented levels of destruction.
We don't have enough food at all. So we need a lot of food. We don't know. Perhaps the lorries we see here, they are to be distributed to us. We don't know, because up now we haven't received any food at all.
With more rains expected to fall south of the country, the affected families can only hope for a rapid intervention from aid agencies. Daniel Arap Moy, CGTN, Nsanje, southern Malawi.
And as has been reported, that cyclone has affected quite a number of countries in southern African region. Let's now get more from Farai Mwakutuya. He's in Harare for us. Farai, reports indicate that at least 89 people have died in Zimbabwe after the cyclone tore across the eastern and southern parts of the country. What is the latest there?
Well, indeed, that death toll is at 89, and unfortunately keeps creeping up because as the weather clears and conditions become better and authorities and rescuers are able to go deeper into the affected areas, they keep coming across, people who've lost their lives. 89 people is the confirmed death toll. About 200 are missing and unaccounted for. We are still waiting for the latest updates because we now know that the situation is clear enough. There's sufficient, the weather is cleared sufficiently for the military planes to go in and helicopters, for the army to also go in and go through some of the wreckage, the homes that have been destroyed, and try to find survivors as well.
Fry, Zimbabwe's Chimanimani district has been cut off from the rest of the country. So what kind of help is being given to affected people in that district?
Well, indeed, you say it has been cut off, and it's been very difficult to get any sort of communication or access to that area because, trees have fallen on roads. There have been rock slides, power lines have been cut off, and all, and the weather has been, unfriendly for people to be able to go in there because of this incessant rain and this huge deluge of water. But we know now that food aid is being taken into those areas. We've seen the military going in with their trucks and taking some of the food aid that is coming through from Harare and other parts of the country. The government is leading and spearheading this effort, mobilizing civic society groups, mobilizing ordinary Zimbabweans who've put together packages of food, clothing, water, so many different groceries, and it is an effort really that has brought Zimbabweans together, so many collection points around the country, and now those things are now able, hopefully, to get to the people who need them, many of them who've, been gathering at some of these command centers and camps that have been set up in places that are in higher ground, that are firmer and have been able to withstand the flooding.
Farai Mwakutuya on the line from Harare for us there. Thank you. Let's now go to other stories we're following for you today. In a developing story in the Netherlands, authorities are investigating what they believe to be a deadly terror attack in Utrecht. The city's mayor says 3 people have been killed and 9 others wounded in the attack at a tram station earlier today. Utrecht province elevated its terror threat to the highest level possible, while schools have been told to take extra precautions. Police say they have identified a suspect, a 37-year-old Turkish man. Prime Minister Mark Rutte has convened a crisis meeting with the government and says he's deeply concerned about the incident. Here's the latest on the investigation from the mayor of Utrecht.
Vanochtend heeft om 11:15
all emergency services are working hard. We cannot exclude. In fact, we assume a terror motive. There was likely one attacker, but there could be more. The identity was disclosed because we can't rule out more incidents, making it impossible for the police to do their work. It is advised that people in our city and the surrounding area stay inside until further notice. If you do not really have to go outside, that's good. This applies to the city of Utrecht. We hope to advise you again around 4 o'clock.
To the latest on the Ethiopian Airlines crash. Boeing is facing mounting pressure as investigators in Paris finished conducting an initial analysis of the black box recorders. Airline officials confirmed the data recovered showed a clear similarity with that of the fatal Lion Air Flight 5 months ago. The new automated control system on the 737 MAX model is under scrutiny. The system is meant to avoid stalling, but pilots reported flight control problems minutes after takeoff. A report by the Seattle Times revealed how the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration outsourced crucial aspects of the safety analysis of the 737 MAX jet to Boeing itself. There were over 300 MAX 8s in operation at the time of the crash, with almost 5,000 more on order. But Boeing has since halted deliveries of its workhorse aircraft. The plane maker's stock dropped another 3.5% in early pre-market trading on Monday as nations continued to ban the MAX 8. Well, let's now take a closer look at the Boeing 737 MAX 8. CGTN explores previous accidents and what comes next as investigations continue. You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead on the program. Police say gunman acted alone in Christchurch, New Zealand. And the Indian Army training 16 African countries.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca. Among the crowds in Cairo.
We've come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile. Along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Eleven opposition candidates in the Comoros running in the upcoming presidential elections have issued a joint call for a transparent vote. The candidates fear fraud by incumbent President Azali, who is seeking re-election. They demand manual counting of ballots at polling stations in the presence of candidates' representatives to ensure fairness. If there is no outright winner in the first round, a second round of voting will be held on April the 21st. This year's elections will be held under a new constitution, which President Azali put to a public vote in July 2018, despite facing a boycott by opposition parties. Turning now to the latest in the recent terror attack in New Zealand. The police commissioner has confirmed that the gunman who shot and killed 50 people praying at two separate mosques acted alone. Meanwhile, the country's gun laws are coming under intense scrutiny in the wake of the attack. The government announced it will enact stricter gun control regulations in coming days. CGTN correspondent Greg Navarro has more.
From a glance, the city of Christchurch appeared to be back at work on Monday, just days after two of its mosques were attacked, killing 50 people. For business owner Peter Parham, the chance to focus on something other than the violence that has devastated the city and its people was welcomed.
Definitely, it's trying to return to some sense of normality.
For others, the start to the work week after a weekend of mourning was a very tough day.
It's a hard one on Monday to come back to and focus, but I think we just need to sort of stay strong.
While many sights were familiar on Monday, the heavy police presence was not, especially surrounding one of the mosques where most of the victims lost their lives.
I know, Daniel, that there is understandably both grief in New Zealand right now, but there is anger too. There are questions that need to be answered and that we are looking for as well.
Students from one of the city's schools performed a traditional Maori ceremony as a tribute to the victims. And makeshift memorials continue to grow, filled with flowers and handwritten messages.
I just wanted to put out there a message of love and acceptance.
There's been a growing focus not only on the gunman's actions here, but also the fact that the shootings were live streamed on social media. Despite repeated calls urging people not to view those 17 minutes of chilling images posted online, many people did, available on a variety of platforms. In fact, Facebook now says that it removed 1.5 million videos from its platform within the 24 hours following the attacks. New Zealand's Prime Minister held the first meeting with the country's cabinet following the shootings, vowing to follow through on a pledge to tighten the country's gun laws.
There are ways that we can bring in effective regulation of firearms that actually target those that we need to target, and that is our focus.
For Peter Parham, the focus for now is finding a way to move forward.
It's just changed Christchurch, it's changed the way the world sees us.
And Parham says the shooting has also changed the way so many here see themselves. Greg Navarro, CGTN, Christchurch.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi says President Xi Jinping's upcoming visit sends a clear message that China places great importance on its relations with Europe.
President Xi Jinping will visit Europe on his first overseas trip this year. Summit diplomacy provides important strategic guidance for China-Europe relations. President Xi's upcoming visit sends a clear and explicit message that regardless of international changes, China will always regard the European Union as an important partner for strategic cooperation. China-Europe relations are paramount on this diplomatic agenda. We hope the spring of 2019 will be a warm spring for China-Europe relations and cooperation a warm current in the world for 2019.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has attended the 9th round of a high-level strategic dialogue between China and the European Union in Brussels. Wang Yi was greeted at the European Commission building by the European Union's Foreign Affairs Chief Federica Mogherini. During the meeting, he also said both are firm supporters of multilateralism, while they oppose protectionism and unilateralism. India is currently taking part in joint military exercises with 16 African countries. The drills are part of an effort to enhance diplomatic relations. Here's more.
16 African countries have begun joint field training exercises with India's army. The effort aims to enhance India's diplomatic relations with the continent.
I'm confident that at the end of this joint training exercise, the contingent would have not only achieved our military objectives of the interoperability, but also would have enhanced the diplomatic and the cultural bonds between the nations.
The exercises are taking place in Pune city, located in western India. Troops receive training in humanitarian mine action and peacekeeping operations under the United Nations.
The aim of this joint training exercise is to equip the contingents with each other's operational procedures on humanitarian mine action and peacekeeping operations under UN mandate, thus ensuring better operability and compatibility.
The participating African countries cover all regions of the continent. The exercises will last 10 days and aim to equip soldiers with skills needed during humanitarian crises. Asatal, CGTN.
In Kenya, several people are reported to have died of starvation as the country battles a ravaging drought that has hit mostly northern parts of the country. The lack of rainfall, compounded with the locust outbreak, has wiped out crop farms in the northern parts of the country, leaving residents battling hunger. The country's devolution cabinet secretary says the government is planning to build dams to increase the storage of water and to help irrigate farms. Now, amid fears of increasing support to his rival, Khalifa Haftar, the head of the Libyan Presidential Council, Fayez al-Sarraj, has reshuffled his military command. Haftar's lead at the Libyan National Army forces are now controlling most of Libya's territories. That has encouraged some Western tribes and military generals to declare their support for a unified military command under the LNA. CGTN's Adil Mahroui has a story.
Following an apparent expansion in territories control, the head of the Libyan National Army, General Khalifa Haftar's influence has been spreading in Libya. Tripoli is worried of Haftar's growing popularity, more so when the Western government's Chief of Military Staff, Abdurrahman al-Tawil, announced his support to a unified military command. Shortly after the announcement, Fayez al-Sarraj, the head of the Libyan Presidential Council, sacked al-Tawil, stripping him of his ranking.
I don't think that decision will affect the unity of the Libyan army. This unification process file and the meetings planning it are being held here in Cairo. And from what we've been hearing, everyone wants to unify the military institution. Many officers in the West have declared a sort of support to the general command of the LNA, simply because a unified army will bring the whole country together.
On Thursday, Tripoli's government appointed a new military chief of staff, Mohammed al-Sharif. The known general and his new deputy, Ali Qinna, are both quite popular among Qaddafi's supporters in central and southern Libya. Analysts believe the move aims to bring back some tribal support to Tripoli.
I believe the appointment of al-Sharif aims to once again dissipate the political scene. I think most military generals, whether they are in the south or west, they have been brought up to belong to a general army command which many believe General Khalifa Haftar represents. That was evident when huge numbers of military personnel joined the LNA, but this move may keep some generals loyal to the Western Bloc.
Last month, in a rare meeting between them, the UN-backed Faiz al-Sarraj and Khalifa Haftar have agreed in UAE to hold elections before this year ends. Yet tension between the two is obviously growing.
With the recent eruption of violence in Tripoli and the ongoing political war between Libya's two rival governments, it appears that both parties are not willing to take a step back for the other's sake. Meanwhile, General Khalifa Haftar seems to be becoming more popular, while Faiz al-Sarraj is still struggling to unify powers within western Libya. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Police in northeastern Uganda confirmed the deaths of 3 people from food poisoning. They allegedly suffered from food poisoning following distributions by the UN World Food Programme. On Saturday, scores of people fell ill after they consumed a super cereal, a fortified blended food. The government and the World Food Programme are investigating the claims. Michael Baleke reports from Kampala.
In a statement released to the press, WFP says they have stopped distribution of blended food in all their operations, including refugee settlements in Uganda. Samples of the super cereal have been submitted for laboratory tests to determine whether there is a link between the blended food and people falling sick. According to WFP, 90 cases, including children with suspected food poisoning, were reported and admitted at health centers in the northeastern part of the country, one day after food distribution there. The patients presented with symptoms including confusion, high fever, dizziness, and headaches. The UN World Food Programme says it is treating this as a matter of extreme urgency. The super cereal food provided by WFP aims to improve nutrition among pregnant or breastfeeding women and children between the age of 6 and 59 months in order to prevent stunting. Michael Baleke, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Here's a quick recap of the headlines at this hour. The Red Cross has said a cyclone that slammed into Mozambique last week has damaged or destroyed 90% of the city of Beira as the death toll in the country and neighboring Zimbabwe rises to 157. The global body said a large dam burst on Sunday and cut off the last road to the city of some 530,000 people. Idai tore into the center of the country on Thursday before continuing on to Zimbabwe, bringing flash flooding and ferocious winds and washing away roads and homes. In a developing story in the Netherlands, authorities are investigating what they believe to be a deadly terror attack in Utrecht. The city's mayor says 3 people have been killed and 9 others wounded in the attack at a tram station earlier today. Utrecht province elevated its terror threat to the highest level possible, while schools have been told to take extra precautions. Police say they have identified a suspect, a 37-year-old Turkish man. The latest on the Ethiopian Airlines crash, Boeing is facing mounting pressure as investigators in Paris finished conducting an initial analysis of the black box recorders. Airline officials confirmed that data recovered showed clear similarities with that of the fatal Lion Air Flight 5 months ago. The new automated control system on the 737 MAX model is under scrutiny. The system is meant to avoid stalling, but pilots reported flight control problems minutes after takeoff. And India is currently taking part in joint military exercises with 16 African countries. The drills are part of an effort to enhance diplomatic relations. And that's a look at your headlines. Let's now go to Ramanyang for a look at the day's business news. Rama.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in business. South Africa's passenger rail service is in trouble after the president gets stuck on a commuter train. And Somalia is seeking help to address a currency crisis. We'll have the details on that coming up next.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Every story starts out like this.
Okay. We'll head up now.
But beyond the rush of the numbers, there's always a more fundamental question. What happened? Who has been affected? When market-moving decisions are made, who's responsible? And why?
Let's get some reaction on ground. Joining us in Johannesburg is Sutra Nairo. Hello, Nairo.
This is how all stories begin. See how they end. Only on Global Business.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Let's start in South Africa, where President Cyril Ramaphosa has called for the speedy resolution of the crisis in the country's commuter rail services. He made those comments after he was stuck for nearly 3 hours on a train journey that ordinarily should last 45 minutes. The president has promised that management changes will take place at the passenger rail agency, PRASA as it's more commonly known, unless existing issues are resolved. The president was on a campaign drive from Tshwane when he took the 50-kilometer ride from Mabopane to Pretoria. Now, frequent delays and poor running of the service has had a negative impact on productivity and ultimately the economy too. Some employees have lost jobs for consistently reporting to work late because the trains are late. South Africa's state-owned power utility, Eskom, says it will continue with planned power cuts amid crippling capacity shortages. The utility stepped up rolling blackouts following a cyclone that has knocked out communications and grid connections that deliver electricity imported from Mozambique. Now, this has taken effectively at this point some 4 gigawatts of generation capacity offline. The loss-making firm produces roughly 90% of South Africa's electricity and is plagued by operational and financial woes that stem from years of mismanagement, corruption and cost overruns. Still in the region, Botswana's Debswana Diamond Mining Company aims to keep production at around 24 million carats this year. Diamond output was up 6% in 2018, supported by demand from the United States, India and China. Now, the country is Africa's largest producer of diamonds, but it's keen to reduce its reliance on mineral revenues, which have dropped by 4% to about $1.26 billion. Debswana is the largest contributor to Botswana's government revenues as well. That stood at $18.2 billion in 2018. Over in North Africa, Tunisia aims to increase the volume of foreign direct investment this year. In dollar terms, FDI flows were nearly 18% higher year on year in 2018. CGTN's Ettrick now reporting on the FDI target for this year.
Tunisian Premier Youssef Al-Shahed announced that foreign direct investments edged up 28.6% in 2018 compared with 2017 and up 44% compared with 2016.
Recent statistics show an improvement of foreign direct investment despite the drop in the dinar's value compared to other currencies. The FDI increased by 17.6% in 2018 in dollars and 12.6% in euros. Tunisia is attracting foreign investors because the business climate has improved over the past 3 years.
Al-Shahed says the Higher Investment Council is currently implementing 4 mega projects worth about $75 million. The projects will boost regional development and create thousands of jobs.
The mega projects include an agro-food industry project in Sidi Bouzid, 2 projects of car components manufacture and aircraft components manufacture project in Ben Aruz. The state is implementing structural economic reforms which initiated a new economic dynamic. Inner regions are now more attractive to foreign investors.
According to the state and the Confederation of Tunisian Citizen Enterprises, several investment projects worth $8.5 billion in total will be reviewed by the Higher Investment Council in the next few weeks.
Since 2011, Tunisia has faced unprecedented economic challenges. Several projects and investments were blocked or interrupted due to strikes or insecurity. Now, the social climate and the security situation are improving. 2019 will be the year of economic recovery.
The Tunisian government aims to boost the pace of investments by 2020. Analysts argue that the North African state can still turn the page on 8 years of economic difficulties.
Tunisia's Higher Investment Council says Parliament needs to adopt the bill designed to improve the business and investment climate. Such a bill will reduce obstacles to foreign direct investment and improve Tunisia's ranking in the 2020 Doing Business report. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Onto the Horn of Africa now, where Somalia is seeking assistance from a Kenya-based currency expert as it looks to address a significant domestic currency crisis. Here's CGTN's Abdulaziz Bilo now reporting from the seaside capital of Mogadishu on how the poor state of the Somali shilling is affecting daily lives.
The new currency is expected to replace existing banknotes that are no longer in use in some regions of the country. This will be the first time authorities in the Horn of Africa nation print new banknotes in 3 decades, a major undertaking expected to cost the government more than $40 million.
Currency reforms are crucial for Somalia, and it's what we've been working for the past 12 to 18 months. Once we acquire funds for this exercise, we will publicize the tender and invite companies that print currency.
The new currency is expected to have smaller denominations compared to the current money in circulation. Traders in central Somalia have banned the use of local currency, claiming it's fake. The ban has affected small business owners who now want authorities to address the issue.
Traders have refused to accept the local currency. We have raised the issue with local authorities, but nothing has changed.
We stopped accepting the Somali shilling for almost 2 years now. We used to accept it before, but not anymore. We don't have any issue with the new currency. We welcome the initiative because as traders, we record good sales when we use local currency.
The ban on local currency in central Somalia has affected foreign exchange. Many currency exchange outlets have been forced to shut down as locals insist on the use of the dollar.
The ban on local currency in some regions of the country has affected many families. Those that operate foreign exchange services cannot earn a living anymore because people prefer using the dollar. The government must have a policy that will enforce use of the Somali currency across the country.
Mobile money transfer service is increasingly becoming popular all across Somalia. The country has been ranked as one of the most active mobile money markets in the world by leading financial institutions, with telecom companies continuing to provide that service at no extra cost to its clients. Leading banks also conduct their daily transactions using the dollar, increasing concerns among many as to how the federal government of Somalia will enforce the use of its new currency. Abdul Aziz Bilo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Let's head further north. Sudan's government signed deals for loans worth about $300 million with regional Arab funds. Now, the state of there is looking for solutions to address a foreign currency crisis that has fueled months of anti-government protests. The Finance Ministry has secured a $230 million loan from the Abu Dhabi-based Arab Monetary Fund. It's designed to address its balance of payments crisis. Another deal worth $70 million was signed with the Arab Trade Financing Program. A combination of price hikes, food shortages and soaring inflation have all triggered demonstrations starting in December that have then quickly morphed into nationwide protests that are calling on the president, Omar Hassan al-Bashir, to resign. Inflation surged to more than 70% before the end of 2018. They have dropped a little bit to around 50% year on year between January and February. Egypt's government has invited international oil firms to apply for gas and exploration concessions in the Red Sea. This bidding round comes in the wake of discoveries of enormous deposits of natural gas within the eastern Mediterranean. With more from Cairo, here's CGTN's Yasser Hakim.
10 new concession licenses to be distributed at once are the largest of its type in the country. The government is aiming to make optimum use of the potential of gas reserves in the area.
The newly tendered 10 blocks, they are in the Red Sea. And this is the first time that we tender out a call for exploration in the Red Sea. Our survey processes that took over the last year and came up with a very promising result that this area is having a potential, a heavy potential of hydrocarbons, and this is the reason behind tendering out this call in this time.
10 international oil firms have already registered on the first few days of issuance, though the door is still open till next August. It's considerably higher demand than previous concessions.
It is dealt with as a concession, where you give some preferences and incentives. This include, of course, tax exemption, some custom exemption as well. So these are the normal exemptions and incentives that we give to all the oil seas. In this case, and as I told you, because this area is a virgin area, we might give a little bit higher share to the IOCs because this is a challenge. It's a new challenge.
The latest discoveries have created an appetite for investors to tap into the natural gas market in Egypt. Egypt is self-sufficient in natural gas, producing about 7.5 billion cubic feet per day, all of it from the East Mediterranean gas fields. New concessions in the Red Sea will give a further boost to Egypt's ambitions to become a major natural gas exporter in the region. Yas Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
And finally, Ethiopia has inaugurated a $61 million Chinese-built power distribution, rehabilitation and grid upgrade project. This project is funded by cash from the World Bank, and it aims to help the country to meet its ambition of achieving nationwide electricity access. Ethiopia's State Minister of Water, Irrigation and Electricity says the project is of great significance to Ethiopia's development plans. There are 7 other targeted cities in this program that includes Jimma, Dire Dawa, Bahir Dar, Mekele, Hawassa, Adama and Dessie.
The project's successful completion and operation is a major milestone for the mutually beneficial bilateral cooperation. There is no doubt that it will go a long way toward helping to promote social and economic development in Ethiopia and improving the livelihood of local communities.
We welcome healthy competition, and we are ready to work with everyone for the good of Africans.
These days, the power is better after the rehabilitation of the electric network. In the past, we did not get electricity for 8 to 9 days, but now we can get electricity every day without outages.
We'll leave it there for the time being. I'll be back at the top of the hour, though. That's in roughly 15 minutes. We'll be looking at the damage, the cost in lives, and of course the economic devastation that's been left by Cyclone Idai as it tracks up and essentially right across the continent from Mozambique to Malawi, and of course into Zimbabwe as well. Details on that and plenty more from Johannesburg and Harare coming your way at 1800 GMT. See you then. For now, though, back to Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. And we still have more news for you here on the program. Here's what's ahead. Chinese performers draw crowds at Cape Town Carnival. And foreign belly dancer creates a buzz in Egypt.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Well, let's head over to South Africa, where the annual Cape Town Festival has celebrated a multicultural pride for the 10th year running. Thousands lined the streets to take part in the colorful parade. This is the third year that the local Chinese community is performing at the event with the traditional lion and dragon dances. Let's take a look.
The street parade was the highlight of this year's Cape Town Festival. This year's theme was Vuka Ukhanye, or Rise and Shine, calling for citizens to shake off limiting beliefs. Giant puppets, floats and dancers brought the streets to life, while thousands of spectators enjoyed traditional performances by the local Chinese diaspora.
It was amazing! Oh my goodness! It was amazing. I think as Cape Town we just need more cultural infusion from Asia. I think we just need more diversity, and I really, really love the Chinese floats. I love Chinese dragons, and it's just epic. It was epic. I loved it.
The Cape Town Festival is a fantastic opportunity for the overseas Chinese here. We're part of the local community, but we also want to showcase our culture. The festival is a platform where we can be proud of our heritage and share it with the world.
South Africa is home to one of the largest Chinese populations on the continent. Many of them have been in the country for several generations, looking for economic opportunities and eventually setting up businesses across South Africa.
There's a huge Chinese community, and they said that for the first time they feel like they really belong. So we've got a strong relationship with them, and they bring so much joy and happiness, and they're really part of our family.
China holds a very special place in the DNA of South Africa, because it was China which was part and parcel of helping the people of South Africa to fight apartheid to start with.
The event, embracing cultural diversity, is already in its 10th year. Organizers here hope for many more years that will draw thousands of spectators. Tonela Lupuana, CGTN.
Egypt has been attracting a growing number of Oriental belly dancers in the last few years. Cairo is seen as an entertainment hub in the Arab world. CGTN's Yasser Hakim met with a foreign belly dancer who is creating a buzz in the North African country.
Belly dancing is part of the cultural scene in Egypt, and successful belly dancers become movie stars of famous celebrities. Belly dancers are so much in demand today that they're not only found performing in nightclubs, but now in weddings, in birthdays, and in boat rides, such as this cruise on the Nile. And aspiring belly dancers, like French dancer Sonia, have come from many countries seeking fame in Egypt.
I come here because I have opportunity. I make audition in Nile Maxim, in a famous boat. So I work 1 month in Cairo, 1 month in Paris. So after I decide to close my school in Paris and come and live Egyptian life. For me, Egypt, Cairo, it's a month of Egyptian and of dancer. So for me, I think all the people here are so proud about dancer. Here, for my art and passion, it's amazing. I love here, yes. Because everything is possible. Nobody in Cairo will say, no, this is what I love.
With a lot of competition, it requires huge effort to reach the top. Sonia's work in Cairo has opened doors for opportunities in other countries, even in China. She travels to China regularly to perform and give training sessions for women who want to learn belly dancing.
First time I go to China, it was before 2 years in Shanghai. And it was so crazy for me. In the class, no one say to me, Sonia. All the students say to me, teacher, please teacher, can you ask you this question? Please. They have something respectable, amazing. They have very good level. Why? Because Chinese don't, she's not lazy people. When they want something, they will work like crazy to get it. I love this mentality.
She's quickly becoming a popular name in the Egyptian entertainment scene.
What we can see is that there is more demand for foreign oriental dancers, and Sonia has been attracting a lot of attention in that field. She's truly a professional dancer, committed and takes work seriously, which is crucial for success.
Just like many others before, Sonia hopes her next step will be acting in cinema or TV series. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Let's start off your sports news in South Sudan, where the country's Football Association says the government of China has agreed to build a new state-of-the-art 15,000-seater football stadium for the country. The president of South Sudan's Football Association
of Ministers, because the things is under the table of Minister of Youth and Sports, Dr. Nadia Dudi. As soon as they get approval, and then we'll send it again back to the Chinese government. And we are very happy, and with the Chinese really is doing good in South Sudan.
More Nigerians who became stranded after last year's World Cup could be deported by Russian authorities after overstaying their visit. Hundreds others who claimed they were duped by travel agents were repatriated, but some stayed in Russia trying to seek asylum. Kleche Mekalam has more.
Blessing Obuson is stranded in Russia months after the World Cup. She's among dozens of girls trafficked from Nigeria. They were disguised as World Cup fans.
A man called David, he did my passport, he did my fine ID card and my fake papers of hotel stay, and that was when I